Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and my unboxing and card making, or first card making, with the Simon Says Stamp April 2024 card kit. This is the Wild and Free Flowers card kit. And like always, the kits are sent to me by Simon Says Stamp. I design with them, work for them. Design team, whatever you want to call it. I don't have to do the unboxings, anything like that, but they're fun. And like I always do, I will have links to the kit. There's the subscription service and all that info because you can buy just the kit. You can buy just the individual items if you don't want the kit. You can do the subscription. Yeah, there's like tons of info, everything. So I'll have links to all of that in the description box below. They are affiliate links. All that means is if you use my links and end up placing an order, I get a little kickback at no additional cost to you. And that's what helps pay the bills and all the things. And yeah, let's get into unboxing this and seeing what's in the kit. So we've got mesh baggie, there's embossing powder. Okay, let's get this out of here. All right, there we go. So, candy. Can't go wrong with candy. Always a good time with that. So we've got candy. We've got, let's get the main. Here we go. So here's the main attraction, this gorgeous 6x8 stamp set. This is the Wild and Free Flowers stamp set. There is a coordinating die set. It is separate. It is a big die set. I actually have it here because it's part of the latest release. So I've already got it, which I'm super excited about because I was going to get it anyway because I was like, I like having coordinating wafer dies. So anywho, all that again, I'll link to below. You guys know, big floral images, you know. But what I also really love is just all of these sentiments. We've got a sympathy, hello sunshine, thank you, friend, etc. I like that. I like having, you know, a good mix of sentiments. So then you can get a lot of use out of this. So we've got the stamp set. There is a 3D embossing folder. This is the Floating Flowers embossing folder. This is really pretty. This will just make really pretty little backgrounds, you know? Love that. So we've got the embossing folder. You get foam squares. These will vary. Yeah, they have multiple sizes and thicknesses. So you'll just get a whole sheet of foam squares. Always nice to have extras with those. Full-size embossing ink pad. This is the one I always use. So I always just, when they have them in the kits, I just set them aside, you know, for when my ink, because I use mine a lot. So when I dry it right out, got a new one. And then same with embossment, you get a pack or a container of the ultrafine gold embossing powder. Again, this is the embossing powder I use. So love. You get the fine detail scissors. These are Teflon coated and like they're non-stick, and yeah, good little detail scissors. You get those. There is an envelope, which is the metallic dull pink. I like Simon's envelopes. It's self-adhesive, so you just peel it off, and it's just pretty. Like, you can't go wrong with metallic anything. So get that. There is cardstock, lavender, dull pink, and then Nina Solar White 110 pound. Mesh bag, like I said, so all of the kit will fit. I use these mesh bags for like everything. Love them. So the kit will fit in the mesh bag. And then last but certainly not least, this is the American Crafts Dreamer 6x8 pattern paper. It's foiled. Oh, you guys, I like me some shiny things. This is really pretty pattern paper. Again, look at that. Ooh, that is fun. Some really pretty pattern. Oh, I like that one too. I like that one a lot. These are so pretty. Love them. Yeah. These are just so pretty. I love them. Ooh. That one is really fun. Okay. Yeah. So there we go. There is the kit in a nutshell. Like I said in the like earlier, I'll have links to all the things. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to make. I want to do some like watercoloring. I think with this, it's so pretty. Yeah, I definitely want to do like maybe some watercoloring. I honestly, well, whatever. Just keep watching and I'll show you guys what I decided to make. Watercoloring did in fact win out. So I pulled out some watercolor paper, and this is just Canson XL watercolor paper from my stash, and I'm going to put it in my MISTI, and I'm going to use this slightly smaller large floral because both of them are huge. I love them. I love them. So I got that, lined it up, and then pulled a watercolor paper out of my MISTI, and I put my anti-static powder all over it. And this just helps to keep the embossing powder from clinging to anything other than the stamped image. And then I'm going to ink this stamp up with that clear embossing ink, and I'm going to ink it up and stamp it a couple times. The Canson XL watercolor paper is not super textured. It's fairly smooth. However, these stamps have a decent amount of detail, and I just find it's better to be safe than sorry. So I just ink things up, stamp them a couple times. And there was enough space on that panel that I was able to flip it around and stamp the image a second time. And then I'm going to use that gold embossing powder, which I have these are like Systema sandwich containers. People have asked in the past, like, how much embossing powder is in there? A lot. You don't need, trust me, no one needs this much. Heck, even me. Same thing though, when it comes in kits and I have multiples, that's the only reason I transferred over to the bigger containers. And again, because I make so many cards and my most used like white, gold, clear, etc. I have in containers like that, and there's multiple containers of embossing powder. But again, average crafter, you don't need it. You don't need that many. Like one container of embossing powder is going to last, even if you use it all the time, it's going to last a really long time. So, all that to say, coated it with the gold embossing powder, melted it with my heat tool, just like wonderful magic that heat embossing is, and I love it. And then for my watercoloring, I'm just using my little Altenew palette again, but I just pulled out just the two colors I wanted to use to make life a little simpler. Because it's difficult to show this when I'm filming, like specifically, what colors I'm using, etc. So I just pulled out the two little pans, just a green and a purple, and I'm using two brushes. These are just the Zen, Royal and Langnickel Zen brushes. I have linked them in with the supplies. This is a size 4 brush, and I have two of them. I use one brush to pick up the color. So I kind of swirl it in the pan, pick up a bit of color, and then I apply it with that first brush. The second brush just has water on it. No color, nothing. And I'm using that to pull out that color. And off camera, I have a cloth that I'm just wiping that brush on in between, uses, etc. And I have my big jar of water that I swirl my brushes in to clean them. And that's it. This is literally so simple. So very easy. I'm doing the exact same thing with the purple. I pick it up with one brush and then I apply it right at the very base of the petal. And then I take my second brush that has just water on it and then I just pull that color out. And then I just repeat on each petal. This is, like I said, it's just simple. Anybody can do this. And then I just keep working my way around. So I just keep applying a little bit of the watercolor to the very base of the petal. And then I go in with that second brush and pull out the color, sometimes add a tiny bit more water depending on how things are moving, how things are looking. And yeah, and they don't have to be the exact same size of brush either. I'm not even sure. I probably accidentally ordered an extra size 4 at one point, without realizing. But when it comes to little brushes like this, it's fine, but they don't need to be the exact same size. Like you could apply the color with say a size 4 and then use a size 6 brush, and sizes vary depending on the brand, everything else, honestly. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about the watercolor. I didn't do anything else. I kept it really, really simple. For me, it was you know, trying to practice on being lighter handed. I've talked about this. I'm very heavy handed when I color. I'm very heavy handed when I watercolor. It's very hard to get those lighter, airier looks, you know, just lots of white space, etc. Not my forte, but I enjoy kind of experimenting with it. So after I was done painting, like I mentioned in the intro, I did have the coordinating wafer dies, which love. So I used said coordinating wafer dies to die cut these. So I just taped the dies into place with bits of washi tape so they don't shift when I ran them through my die cut machine. And then I used the lavender cardstock and I cut it in half again. So I've got a couple of A2 size panels here, and I'm going to run them through my die cut machine with the floating flowers embossing folder that came in the kit. So I gave it a light mist with water. This just softens the fibers in the paper, so you get a little bit more, a little bit better of an embossed impression. And then ran that through my Empress machine with one cutting plate. And then I've got this fabulous little embossed background, and then repeated the process with the second panel. And then I trimmed these down a bit. They were A2 size originally. I trimmed these down to about 4 inches by 5 1/4. So they'll be just slightly smaller than my A2 card bases. So I trim those down, and then I'm going to do just some very simple ink blending on these panels. Just, it gives it that little extra something. And I started with Simon's Amethyst Positively Saturated ink and blending that on. And this is the same sort of rule, you know, that I've talked about when you're applying like inks, whether it's Copics or alcohol markers or dye inks, anything on darker cardstock. So anything darker than white. So in this case, I'm using lavender cardstock. Always let everything dry. It you know, because everything looks darker on these darker cardstocks, but it's amazing how things will soften out and blend and fade in, etc. when they dry, and it's way more apparent on darker cardstocks than it is just on white, if that makes sense. So right now, that kind of halo I've created is much more intense. It is much softer once the ink is fully dry. So I blended that amethyst on, and then I also used Pansy, which is a very muted kind of darker purple, to create that, you know, sort of halo effect. And then I took my clear ink pad and I was just running it along the edges. You honestly don't need to do this if you do this step right after ink blending, because there's still, like, the inks are not dry. But I added the clear ink just around the very edge just to have a little more stickiness going on, because I'm dipping the edge of my cardstock, as you can see, into the embossing powder. Now, again, for those of you that do as I say and not as I do, and don't have big, huge containers like this of embossing powder, you can use a scrap piece of paper and just pour the embossing powder onto it. You know, pour just a little like line, you know, pour it all in sort of an evenish line, and then you can dip the edges of your cardstock into that. That will work. And then you can use the scrap paper to funnel it back into the container. Because again, you don't need, you know, 5+ containers of the same color of embossing powder. So that will work too. So I dipped those edges and then I melted it with my heat tool, and it just creates this, you know, gold edge on those panels. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of gold splatter. Not a lot, just a bit, you know. So I used my Gansai Tombi Starry Colors. I'd put water in it, swirled it with my fan brush, put that in my splat box, added a bit of splatter to those backgrounds, and then I let that dry. And then for my sentiment, I'm just using a scrap of black cardstock, and I'm using the Sympathy sentiment from this set, and same process. Anti-static powder, line up the sentiment, stamp it with clear embossing ink, stamping it a couple times, just making sure, try not to press too hard, because with, you know, sentiments, finer lines, etc., you don't want to like mush down whether you're using a MISTI or other stamp positioners or just a clear acrylic block. You don't want to press really, really hard, because you'll like literally mush out the fine lines, you know, and that especially is obvious with sentiments, because if you find that it's like, oh, I can't even really read, like, what are these letters? It's literally you just press too hard. So it's another thing I'm working on. It's like better to stamp more than once with just light pressure than it is to just like CPR your stamps. So after I emboss those with the same gold embossing powder, I remove that excess anti-static powder with my microfiber cloth, and then die cut those with the coordinating wafer die. And then I took some of the pattern paper from this kit, and I just kept it attached. I think I saw it was Kelly Person who showed this in a video or something, and I was just like, I like this. You know, when I'm able to do it, I'm gonna do the same thing, is keeping the paper attached to the pack, so that I don't have to deal with pieces falling out of it. That's the only reason. It's a little bit kind of silly to fiddle around to make it work, but if it keeps all the paper in one spot, for me, I like that, because then it's just one less thing, because otherwise I'm like losing, you know, random pieces and yada yada. Anyway, trim down some of the pattern papers, set those aside. Like I said earlier, my card base is a top folding A2 white note card, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I put the card base into my MISTI, and I'm stamping that same floral image, this time with a light purple ink. This is Simon's Lilac positively saturated ink. So I stamped that onto the insides of both of these cards. And then I'm going to line these up now in the corner there and start stamping more of the sentiments for the inside of the card. And these I'm stamping with just some intense black ink. So I did the sending word first, got that lined up, and then the rest of the sentiments I was able to just kind of butt up against each other and got those lined up, and then I can ink them up and stamp them with that same black ink. So the inside just says sending love and hugs during this difficult time. And once I've got those stamped, I can now start just assembling my cards. So I'm going to adhere these 3D embossed and heat embossed backgrounds to the card bases just with craft tacky glue. And then I'm just setting them like at the top there. You can see I've got just, it's like the stamp set and the watercolor palette, etc. A couple ink pads. I was piling those on top just to create a little bit of pressure to hold things in place while the glue dries. That's all that was for. So I then started working with the pattern paper. So I adhered the narrower strips together, again, just using my little craft tacky glue, and then just tore off one edge just to give it that little extra something, and then adhered that to the inside of the card. And then the wider strips, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So just adhering the smaller one to the wider one. And then once I've got those adhered together, I'm going to figure out where I want to tear this onto the card front. And then tear off that edge, repeat that with the other piece. And then I can adhere the pattern paper to the card front. Again, just a little bit of craft tacky glue, get that popped into place. And then I can adhere my watercolored and die cut floral also with craft tacky glue. I decided not to go overboard with the dimension this time. Always just depends on my mood. So I pop that into place, let that glue dry, and then flipped over the cards and trimmed off the bits that were hanging off the edge. And then for the sentiment, I just used some thin, Simon's thin black foam squares, because I have a ton of these in my stash, of course, and stuck those on the back of the sentiment and then popped those into place. And that finished off the cards. So like I mentioned in the intro, I will have all the links, all the info, etc. in the description box below the video. I'll have a link to the kit. I'll have a link to the subscription info. I'll have links to everything I used along with everything that's available like individually. So you can just expand the description box and check that all out if you're interested. And then there will of course be a link to my blog post where I'll have all the photos, picture links, everything. That will also be directly below the video. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. Subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.